Have you ever felt a real déjà vu? Not the casual kind, but the kind that hits your body first, where your stomach drops before your mind can explain why? Have you noticed impossible synchronicities stacking too neatly to dismiss? Numbers repeating, names resurfacing, conversations mirroring thoughts you never said out loud? Have you felt reality glitch even briefly? Time stretching, compressing, slipping sideways, like the clock didn't just move forward but bent? If you've experienced any of that, hear this clearly. You're not crazy, you're not broken, and you're not too spiritual or too analytical. You're perceiving something most people are conditioned to ignore. And if your chest tightened when I said that, if your breathing shifted just slightly, stay with me. This isn't for everyone, but it might be for you. Before I explain anything, notice what's happening in your body right now. Not your thoughts, your body. Is there a subtle pressure in your chest? A heaviness? Or a strange calm? Did your mind quietly label this as weird, yet you kept watching anyway? Good. That response matters more than belief. It's part of the pattern. Here's the part that almost never gets said out loud. When people talk about spiritual awakening, they describe light, clarity, peace. That's not how it usually begins. It begins with interruption. Jobs vanish. Relationships dissolve. Identities you spent years building suddenly feel hollow. Not slowly, not logically. Pieces of your life are just gone. And what unsettles you isn't the loss itself. It's the strange calm that follows. Like something essential was removed and in the silence, something else started humming. Mainstream culture calls this burnout, anxiety, depression, a breakdown. But there's another framework. One physics has been circling for over a century. In quantum consciousness research, collapse doesn't mean failure. It means a system reached a point where its current configuration could no longer hold information. When that happens, the system doesn't improve, it resets. That idea alone contradicts everything we're taught about success, stability, and identity. And it's why this topic makes people uncomfortable. In the early 20th century, experiments like the double slit experiment began showing that observation changes outcome. Measurement doesn't just reveal reality, it alters it. That wasn't mysticism, it was physics. Later work expanded this through the observer effect, suggesting that perception participates in the quantum field itself. Reality at some level responds. Those implications were not celebrated. Many papers exploring them were rejected repeatedly, sometimes more than a dozen times, with comments like, too metaphysical or outside acceptable scope, same data, same math, wrong conclusions. A worldview where consciousness influences reality is difficult to manage, let alone teach. Now bring this back to you. If you've felt isolated lately, like people don't quite recognize you anymore, it might not be a personality flaw. It might be frequency. In complex systems, coherence matters. When systems operate at incompatible frequencies, they interfere. Translation: you feel alone because you're operating differently. Not better, not worse. Different. Your subconscious mind registers this before language does. It shows up as restlessness, as a pull toward quiet, as intolerance for noise that once felt normal. You're not losing motivation. You're losing resonance with a story that no longer fits. If reality responds to observation, then what you attend to shapes what becomes real. Reality creation isn't a slogan, it's a question. And if your life collapsed, it may not be because you failed. It may be because the old configuration could no longer hold what was emerging underneath. I'm not here to resolve this yet. I'm here to tell you the interruption wasn't random. Stay with me. This next part is where the pattern stops being abstract and starts getting unsettling. In 1935, Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger introduced a thought experiment that was meant to expose the absurdity of quantum mechanics. Instead, it exposed reality. Schrödinger showed that until observation occurs, a system exists in multiple contradictory states at once. Not metaphorically, mathematically. Later, in 1972, physicist John Clauser verified quantum entanglement experimentally, proving that separated particles behave as a single system. Outcome depended on observation, not distance. This shattered the idea of an objective world unfolding independently of perception. And here's the unsettling implication no one prepared you for. If quantum consciousness participates in collapse, then your synchronicities weren't coincidences. Your déjà vu wasn't memory error. Your sense of parallel outcomes brushing against each other was perception registering probability collapse in real time. When your frequency shifted, Old internal data became unstable. Reality didn't argue. It resolved. That resolution felt like loss because identity lagged behind awareness. Nobel Prize winner Max Planck admitted it plainly. I regard consciousness as fundamental. That sentence is never emphasized in school because a population that understands observer effect cannot be conditioned. If this matches your experience, don't summarize it. Describe the exact moment things stopped aligning and started dissolving. Write it below. Others will recognize it. And stay with me, because this is where it gets stranger. Most people think the interruption ends once the noise fades. It doesn't. In 1977, physicist John Archibald Wheeler formalized the delayed choice experiment, later confirmed in 2007 by Vincent Jacques and his team. The result was precise and repeatable. Particles behaved as if present observation rewrote their past behavior. Measurement didn't simply reveal reality, it reached backward and decided it. That shattered the mainstream idea of a fixed timeline. If observation can influence outcomes across time, then déjà vu isn't fantasy. It's perception brushing against parallel resolution paths collapsing late. That tightening in your chest when coincidences stack isn't anxiety. It's your subconscious mind detecting probability compression inside the quantum field. Energy reorganizes before language can follow. When frequency shifts, old futures become inaccessible, and the body notices first. That's why time felt wrong, why interest drained away, why returning felt impossible. Reality creation is not preference-based. It is coherence-based. The observer effect demands alignment, not effort. Entanglement proves separation is cosmetic, not fundamental. Nobel Prize winner Max Planck said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental." That line is never emphasized in school because a population that understands quantum consciousness cannot be conditioned through fear. If this mirrors your interruption, don't explain it. Describe the exact moment it started and what stopped working. Write it in the comments so others can recognize the pattern. And stay here, because this is where it gets stranger. In 2004, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet's work was revisited by Patrick Haggard at University College London, confirming that neural activity precedes conscious decision by measurable milliseconds. Mainstream psychology said this meant free will was an illusion. But Libet himself rejected that conclusion. He stated consciousness retained veto power over action. Awareness was not late, it was supervisory. That distinction changes everything. If consciousness can interrupt automatic processes, then identity collapse is not pathology. It is system override. When your sense of self dissolved, when motivation vanished and familiar meanings emptied out, your nervous system was not failing. It was releasing outdated coherence. Neuroplasticity spikes during disorientation, not comfort. The brain rewires when reference points dissolve. That's why soul recall feels like confusion, not bliss. Memory destabilizes. Time perception warps. Parallel versions of self stop competing. In quantum consciousness terms, probability density narrows. The observer effect intensifies. Reality creation demands fewer identities, not more. Nobel Prize winner John Eccles admitted that mind influences matter through choice points. Yet this is never emphasized in school because a population that understands veto power cannot be conditioned. If this phase matched your experience, don't summarize it. Describe what stopped feeling real and when. Write it below so others recognize the signal. Stay present because here's where everything changes. What you've been hearing wasn't a collection of ideas. It was a pattern assembling itself. Physics didn't appear here to impress you. It appeared to orient you. From quantum consciousness to the observer effect, from entanglement to perception-shaping outcome, every thread pointed back to the same realization. Reality never collapsed against you. It collapsed through you. The interruption you survived wasn't emotional failure. It was frequency mismatch correcting itself. That strange neutrality you felt after loss wasn't emptiness. It was bandwidth clearing. Your subconscious mind released an identity that could no longer synchronize with the quantum field you were entering. If your body feels alert right now, if your breath feels different, that isn't anxiety. That's coherence forming before language can catch up. Consciousness expansion is always felt physically first. Vibration shifts before belief does. And here's the part that quietly destabilizes everything. If awareness collapses possibility, then time cannot function the way you were taught. If perception participates in reality creation, then separation isn't fundamental. And if consciousness is not produced by the brain, then death Distance and identity do not mean what institutions insist they mean. I'm not resolving that here, not because it's complex, but because this knowledge has always been suppressed for a simpler reason. Minds that remember authorship cannot be controlled. You didn't arrive here randomly. Alignment always feels accidental to those who don't sense frequency. You're not alone either. Thousands are reaching this same threshold simultaneously. This space exists because resonance creates structure. Now the only thing that matters is what you choose next. Not externally, internally. If this only moved your thoughts, nothing changes. If you felt it in your body, something already did. So mark it. Type, "I am the observer" in the comments. Not for engagement, but as declaration. Public intention collapses probability. It strengthens the collective frequency here and draws others who are ready. This isn't affirmation. It's activation. You can't unsee this. Something shifted permanently. What happens now depends on the next few seconds. Pause, feel it, and notice what responds. Because what scientists are now discovering isn't just controversial, it's destabilizing. Consciousness doesn't behave like something generated by the brain, like a chemical byproduct or a neural side effect. It behaves like something the brain tunes into, the way a radio tunes into a signal that already exists. When researchers began isolating variables, mapping perception, and testing awareness under altered conditions, a pattern emerged they couldn't ignore. The brain wasn't creating consciousness. It was filtering it, limiting it, localizing something non-local. And that discovery quietly breaks everything we were taught about identity, death, and where you actually are. That's why this research didn't go viral when it first appeared. That's why it stayed fragmented across labs, papers, and footnotes. But now it's converging. And once you see what they found, you can't put consciousness back inside the skull. Scientists just discovered consciousness doesn't live in your brain.